The video opens on a kingdom in the clouds. We're not looking at a simple sky island. Cloud Whale City places an entire palace on the back of a whale gliding through fog. Notice how Ideogram 4.0 isn't just painting a fantasy animal, the image holds together as architecture. As the camera drifts, we arrive at a table hovering on the edge of space. Null gravity dining plays with surreal physics, yet the restaurant layout still makes sense. Menus hang off to the side, and there's a swirling plate suspended by what looks like gravitational lensing. Ideogram 4.0 understands that even the wildest concept needs a menu layout, a reservation note, and typography that feels like fine dining. The model holds those pieces together while conjuring cosmic light and swirling black hole patterns. That balance between fantasy and design logic is what grabs your attention. Then we descend into the supernova library, a cathedral built from dying stars. Here the model is juggling scale and composition. Bookshelves spiral like galaxies, signage points to the stellar wing and eclipse wing, and the ceiling glows with nebulae. The fact that the labels sit on the right shelves shows that Ideogram can keep text aligned with architectural elements, even while rendering deep cosmic lighting. Next we cut inside the Earth. Volcano City is a survival plan for a community living inside a crater. Instead of just showing lava and chaos, the diagram presents shield gates, escape lifts, lava turbines, and a status indicator set to dormant. The cross-section reads like an engineering plan and a piece of speculative fiction at the same time. Ideogram isn't just making cool shapes, it's laying out infrastructure logically. The consistency of the labels, matching fonts, alignment, and scale, demonstrates structural awareness that other models often miss. From there, we follow a steep path up the slopes of a sleeping giant. In Giant's Dream Cinema, a mountain figure lies on its side, and inside its chest is a glowing theater with a film reel tower. The way the body forms the structure of the auditorium shows how the model integrates storytelling with architecture. The tagline, "Tonight, the sleeping world," sits perfectly in the clouds and doesn't get swallowed by the shadows. Again, typography isn't an afterthought, it's part of the narrative. As the music swells, we dive under the waves to an underwater stage. Abyss Opera presents a whale singing amid jellyfish lights. This could easily become a messy composition, yet the text, "One Night Only," sits right where a poster would place it. Ideogram handles the motion blur of fins and the luminescence of deep sea creatures while keeping the poster layout intact. That's crucial if you want to combine illustration with marketing copy in one prompt. We surface into Meteor Garden, where glowing plants, meteor lilies, comet roses, and asteroid orchids bloom under starlight. Each flower is labeled, the bloom index is clearly indicated, and the composition feels like a botanical plate and a fantasy painting simultaneously. Ideogram shows that it can draw small objects with precise callouts and still produce a moody, atmospheric scene. Our journey continues aboard an airship restaurant. This cross-section reveals kitchens, herb gardens, observation lounges, and a wine cellar inside a floating vessel. Look at how the service loops connect floors, and how the labels adhere to each room. The model keeps the spatial logic intact. Then we submerge into the library below the sea. Domed reading rooms, choral archives, and manuscript vaults are arranged like an underwater campus. The bubble lift glows, the living light creates ambience, and the text floats without distortion. Ideogram's cross-modal understanding allows it to integrate typography into underwater scenes with believable distortion and lighting, proving useful for world-building concept art and storyboards. Our next stop is a side scroll through a dungeon loading screen. Descending, the elevator between worlds shows a vertical series of biomes, crystalline caverns, fungal forests, lava forges, linked by a central lift. The next depth indicator and travel tip are rendered in the same style as the environment. This demonstrates that Ideogram can handle game UI and narrative environment design at once. Your prompts can ask for cross-sections and UI elements in a single image without things falling apart. Finally, to connect our floating fantasies with real-world concerns, we glide over an urban wildlife crossing. A forest bridge stretches above a highway, and labels point out soil and route mats, safe passage zones, sensor watch status, and green corridor icons. The city skyline blurs into the background, while the crossing remains clear. This shows that Ideogram can handle environmental design and signage systems at once, making even ecological infrastructure visually compelling. The next sequence reimagines ordinary objects as entire societies. In the impossible post office, letters travel through pneumatic tubes. a sorting engine hums, and a destination portal network ties everything together. The map of routes wraps around the building, and the labels read like station names on a transit diagram. Ideogram proves it can translate postal logistics into whimsical architecture without losing functional logic. When we pan to sneaker megacity, a running shoe becomes an urban ecosystem. There's a tow market, foam housing, lace bridge, Seoul Metro, and heel power plant. Notice how each area is both recognizable as part of a shoe and believable as part of a city. The tagline, "A shoe is just a city that learned to run," lands perfectly on the soul. This kind of reimagining shows that the model can map complex conceptual metaphors onto real-world objects with visual coherence. Breakfast civilization takes a plate of food and turns it into a nation. An egg becomes a volcano, toast slices turn into farmland, bacon strips become a highway, and pancakes form suburbs around a coffee sea. Labels describe each zone, and the overall layout reads like a children's atlas. Ideogram balances playful metaphors with clear visual hierarchy, illustrating how the model can handle infographics that are both humorous and structured. With the Beehive startup operating system, the model anthropomorphizes a beehive into a corporate org chart. The Queen's executive office, Nectar Ops, Dance Analytics, and Wax Build team are arranged in a honeycomb infographic. Each cell contains icons and text, and the tagline, "The original startup had wings," sits at the bottom. This demonstrates Ideogram's ability to insert corporate humor into biological diagrams while preserving clarity. At the weather loading dock, weather is treated like cargo. Crates labeled rain unit, snow hold, fog tank, and storm crate sit on pallets, and a forecast dispatch board organizes deliveries. The entire image reads like a shipping yard, yet conveys meteorological concepts. The ability to assign icons, color codes, and text to imaginary objects shows the model's strength in conceptual visualization. We then zoom into a city on a leaf, where buildings sprout between veins and tiny lights twinkle. The scale is controlled so that the macro texture of the leaf and the micro architecture live in harmony. Ideogram understands perspective and scale, skills that matter when generating miniature worlds. With the ocean kimono, storm waves and schools of fish are woven into fabric folds. Ideogram merges fashion design with environmental narrative, showing that it can embed landscape scenes into textiles while preserving garment drape and form. In the Ash library, burnt matchsticks assemble into bookshelves and charred spines. There's an eerie glow from embers, and the concept feels like a meditation on impermanence. The model respects the modular logic of the shelving while rendering ash textures convincingly. The rain portrait pushes scale even further. Here, hundreds of umbrellas form a face when seen from above. Each umbrella is detailed, and together they create a recognizable portrait. Ideogram shows it can handle repeated objects and global compositions simultaneously. It doesn't just copy and paste, it positions each element to contribute to the overall form. We then visit the Museum of Forgotten Technologies, a diorama filled with cassette tapes, floppy disks, and CRT screens. Labels and tiny lights present each relic like an exhibit. This shows how Ideogram can miniaturize technology and arrange it in a museum layout with signage that looks curated. The Museum of Miniature Disasters continues this miniature theme. Flood models, earthquake tables, tornado chambers, avalanche slopes, blackout cities, and command boards occupy separate compartments. Each disaster scenario has its own label and environment, and the transitions between them feel natural. The model maintains coherence even when combining multiple small worlds in one frame. After being swept away by worlds of imagination, we shift into pure information design. Ideogram 4.0 isn't just a dream machine, it's a diagram engine. The Brain City map kicks off this section. A human brain becomes an urban transit system, with regions labeled memory, movement, vision, balance, and more. Each label aligns with the correct lobe, and the connecting lines echo neural pathways. This proves that the model can merge anatomical accuracy with city map logic. In the Weather Factory, the machinery of rain, thunder, sunlight, and clouds sits inside a steampunk factory. Gauges read 47% drizzle, pipes run to the rainbow line, and cloud presses cycle overhead. The typography matches the mechanical style, and the schema reads like an operations chart. Ideogram shows it can coordinate whimsical mechanics with legible process flow. The Dream Engine breaks down a memory machine into labeled parts: a glass memory core, copper coil array, control dial, and memory capsule. Each component floats with callouts, and the brass texture feels tangible. Exploded diagrams like this require spatial reasoning and label alignment, capabilities Ideogram nails. With the foldable drone diagram and smartphone internals, the model moves moves into consumer hardware. The mechanical camera and mechanical watch show similar control. Ideogram maintains perspective consistency across multiple exploded diagrams, something that makes or breaks technical illustration. Historical infographics like the Nile trade system and the scriptorium demonstrate a different kind of structure. Here, the model shows sensitivity to historical mood while still presenting clear information hierarchies. Modern engineering diagrams, electric vehicle powertrain, renewable energy grid, anatomy of a quantum computer, how microchips are made, and the global smartphone supply chain rely on the same discipline. Battery packs connect to inverters, motors, and regenerative braking systems. Solar panels feed into batteries and smart meters. Cryogenic stacks house qubits and control electronics. Wafer fabrication steps progress from photoresist to lithography, etching, and packaging, and supply chains trace raw materials through assembly to recycling. Ideogram handles icons, arrows, step numbers, and callouts without misplacing them. This matters because AI image generation is often used for visualizing emerging technologies, and clarity is non-negotiable. Process diagrams aren't limited to tech. How a court case moves explains filing, response, discovery, mediation, and trial. Journey of plastic pollution traces plastic from street drains to oceans, microplastics, the food web, and prevention strategies. Immune system defense shows barriers, inflammation, memory cells, and antibody responses, while the water cycle illustrates evaporation, condensation, precipitation, collection, and groundwater flow. In each case, the model keeps arrows pointing in the right direction and text aligned to the right process, making complex topics approachable. Creative infographics like the high route, an embroidered trail map stitched into fabric, show how Ideogram can stylize information while keeping it legible. The ridgeline, base camp, and pass markers all read clearly, even though the medium is thread. Memory Palace Museum presents rooms such as childhood, language, faces, skills, and the Forgetting Archive as a museum diagram, with emotion tags and entry points drawn like floor plans. It combines educational content with a conceptual narrative. The Underground Fungal Network diagram breaks down mycelial networks into fruiting bodies, root partnerships, decomposition, spore release, and nutrient exchange. The cross-section and labels show that the model understands biological structures and can translate them into a clean, dark-themed infographic. Design isn't just about objects, it's also about spaces. The luxury tiny house floor plan demonstrates how Ideogram can lay out a small footprint with full amenities. The plan feels both architecturally accurate and inviting, which is hard to achieve in a single image. The Desert Brutalist Villa cross-section shows thick walls storing cool air, solar roofs collecting energy, a shaded courtyard, and a suite tucked behind heavy concrete. Environmental strategy and spatial design are communicated simultaneously. This is where the model's understanding of cutaways pays off. You can see how the climate strategy integrates with the architecture. On the other end of the spectrum is the Skyline Penthouse. The plan's clarity and the coherence of the finishes show that Ideogram can generate aspirational lifestyle layouts without losing spatial logic. Finally, the underground shelter plan pushes the cutaway approach underground. Ideogram handles subterranean structures with the same clarity as surface-level plans. Mystery and investigation call for visual storytelling. Case 47 is an evidence board connecting an alley photograph, a wristwatch, and a hotel room with red thread. Notes like "Follow the time" appear pinned to the corners. Ideogram delivers the organized chaos of a detective wall, where each piece feels cut out and taped up manually. Case 1974 continues that sense of narrative. The board's weathered background, sticky notes, and string lines show that the model can mimic real detective ephemera. Shifting to historical strategy, the operation table displays a planning map with colored blocks for naval lanes, beach sectors, and air support. The status indicator reads, "Awaiting dawn." The map is organized, the legend is clear, and the composition evokes wartime briefing rooms. Search area zooms into a missing hiker case. Ideogram proves it can insert narrative details, like a note reading, "Report any signal fire," without derailing the map's legibility. Moving into the world of posters and advertising, Ideogram proves it can handle typography and brand voice. In Skyrunner 95, a sneaker advertisement, cutout shapes collide around the shoe. Callouts tout a new foam core and street speed. The collage looks like it was designed by a professional sports brand, showing that Ideogram understands contemporary ad aesthetics. Ideogram also excels at illustrated storytelling. The anime train crossing depicts two girls waiting at a train crossing in the rain. The umbrellas, puddles, and reflections feel like a frame from an animated film. The model maintains consistent character proportions and a harmonious color palette. The violin maker sketch captures an elderly artisan carving a violin in his workshop. Line work, shading, and ambient light recall traditional ink drawing. Ideogram can emulate hand-drawn styles and preserve the intimacy of craft scenes. Toy Repair Shop brings a 3D cartoon aesthetic to life. Plush toys await repair while tools hang on pegboards. The depth cues and lighting are consistent, demonstrating that Ideogram can handle volumetric cartoon scenes. Detective Case File is a noir-style illustration of a detective reading a file under a lamppost. The shadows, composition, and typography evoke classic graphic novels. Ideogram balances moodiness with legible text, illustrating its range and genre. Finally, the children's band shows a group of kids playing instruments in a cartoon 3D scene. Instruments are proportionate, the characters' expressions are lively, and the scene feels cohesive. This proves the model's ability to handle character groups and narrative energy. Our final section showcases interface design and utility. Ideogram aligns text labels with controls and maintains visual balance, demonstrating that it can create believable software UI mockups. Smart Home Dashboard displays climate controls, energy usage, and security cameras in a unified layout. Each widget has consistent spacing and labeling. This shows that Ideogram can handle data-dense interfaces without clutter. Room 12, Four Seasons is a conceptual ad disguised as a room layout. A single hotel room is divided into 4 quadrants: winter, spring, summer, autumn. The tagline, "The weather checked in before you did," lands on the floor. Ideogram manages to combine set design, interior layout, and advertising copy in one image. Finally, we return to transit with skyline routes and ocean line. These floating and underwater transit maps have station names, route lines, and legends that all make sense. The islands and aquatic habitats feel like part of the same world. Ideogram's ability to produce usable transit diagrams within fantastical settings underscores the model's understanding of both graphic design and world building. You've just seen what Ideogram 4.0 can generate. Let's see how the workflow actually works. Before anything else, make sure to update ComfyUI to avoid crashes and ensure compatibility. You can get the default ComfyUI Ideogram 4.0 workflow by going to Templates here. I made some tweaks to this to make it run more easily on low VRAM setups. I replaced the default text encoder with a lighter Q4KM GGUF encoder and swapped to KJ diffusion loader nodes, which gives better control on Blackwell and Ada Lovelace GPUs. But if you have an older gen GPU, it's best to use the default settings. Now this is important. The model doesn't support Sage Attention, so make sure it is disabled. I've tried using the GGUFs, and they were painfully slow. When using the FP8s to generate a 2 megapixel default preset image, it usually takes 4 to 5 minutes, but with GGUFs, it takes twice the time. So I strongly recommend FP8s if you have 8 gigs of VRAM paired with 32 gigs of system RAM. Only use the GGUFs if you have 16 gigabytes of system RAM. Also, if you're going to use GGUFs and run into an issue, you don't have to panic. There is an easy fix. The standard ComfyUI GGUF custom node by City96 hasn't officially merged the architecture support for Ideogram 4 just yet. Since the official City96 repository is still waiting for the pull request to be merged, the community has already jumped in and patched it. You just need to swap out your current GGUF node directory for a patched community fork that has the Ideogram 4 architecture hard-coded in. Navigate to your ComfyUI custom nodes directory on your drive. Delete the existing ComfyUI GGUF folder. Open your command prompt or terminal inside the custom nodes folder and clone the working community fork by running this exact command. Restart ComfyUI, load up your workflow, and now you'll be able to run the GGUF models. As usual, here you have links to all the models you need. Since I'm running on a low VRAM setup, I prefer only using the main text encoder, which is Qwen3VL8B. To enhance your prompts, you can use a local LLM running on LM Studio or a cloud model like Gemini or ChatGPT. The resolution selector may look simple, but it decides the shape of your canvas before you even start prompting. Aspect ratio gives you the frame, square for balanced compositions, portrait for posters or phone wallpapers, 16:9 for YouTube visuals, and ultra-wide for panoramic worlds. The official workflow defaults to 1.0 megapixel, which is fine for testing, but I always lean toward 2.0 megapixels because it provides more room for labels, diagrams, and tiny details. Ideogram 4 offers 3 presets: Quality, Default, and Turbo. Quality runs the highest number of steps and can produce polished results, but in my testing, Default often feels cleaner. Quality sometimes adds unwanted micro-labels or gibberish in text-heavy images. Default renders faster and still looks great, making it my preferred balance for posters, infographics, and diagrams. Turbo is perfect for quick idea exploration, and once I like the concept, I switch to default for a cleaner version. On my system with a Blackwell RTX 5068GB, a 2-megapixel default render takes about 4 to 5 minutes using FP8 models. Ideogram 4 can generate images from a simple sentence, but its true strength appears when using structured prompts. You don't need to handwrite giant JSON files. There is a template attached in the workflow for your reference, and it makes things so much more convenient. It acts like a translator. You describe your idea normally and specify the aspect ratio, then a local or cloud LLM converts it into structured JSON file. Your support means absolutely everything to me. It's what allows me to grow this channel and keep delivering these free, low VRAM optimized workflows and guides to you guys. If you found this tutorial helpful, smash that subscribe button, leave a thumbs up, and drop your thoughts in the comments.